Now to MSNBC political analysts Pat Buchanan and Rachel Maddow. And when last we discussed things with them, the subject of Iraq had come up, which might have been maybe the biggest area of dispute between the two, and for reasons that have been long present. But Rachel, I'm wondering, do you think Hillary Clinton answered any of those people in the Democratic Party who are literally holding her vote in 2002, late 2002, early 2003, her votes and her stance against her? Did she convince anybody to go with her? And if she did not, what can she do about A, winning the nomination, and B, winning the election without them?
She made it considerably worse for herself tonight on Iraq, and I think that's why I would say, if I had to pick a winner, I would say she lost the debate because of Iraq. Previously, when Obama has pointed out that he was against the war when she was voting for the use of force, she's counterpunched by pointing out his softer statements earlier on in the war and the fact that he's voted to continue funding it since he's been in the Senate. Tonight, she didn't counterpunch, and instead she decided to explain that her vote in 2002, when she voted that way, it was a complete shock to her that Bush used that use of force authorization as an excuse to go to war.
As a use of force.
Yes, exactly. I remember vividly that night in October 2002, driving around and around and around in my Ford because I didn't have a TV and somebody was broadcasting those Senate floor speeches. And when she started to give her speech, I literally, and I don't mean to be dramatic here, I literally remember crying as I was driving because she was voting for the war. We all knew she was voting for the war. She was voting for the war. She knew she was voting for the war. It's one thing to be wrong. It's another thing to go back and say, how could I have known? I was so surprised. It insults me personally for her to have made that case tonight, and I think it insults all of us who remember that far back or can Google it tonight.
Pat?
I'm not insulted, but I will say I thought that was the strongest. Look, Barack Obama did two things tonight. The most important thing, I think, he got back up. He got away from the Resco Walmart nonsense and got back up as sort of an inspirational leader. And you got all of that race, gender stuff out of there. Secondly, on Iraq, he was very good. He had two outstanding lines. He said the important thing is to be right on day one, which goes right at her. And the second line, which I thought was a very good line, we not only got to end the war, we got to end the mindset that brought on this war. And I think those two were really telling lines, and maybe because I happen to agree with the position, but I thought they were the best lines that Barack got tonight. Besides, also, let me add one thing. I think his humor came back, and it's a soft humor about the wheels coming off McCain, and Romney's investment looks like it's gone a little bad, and you can smile with that, with his humor. And so I think in this sense, he really helped himself, especially in the second half of the debate. In the first half, I thought Hillary was basically winning on points.
Where, Rachel, was Hillary's answer on any of the three occasions when Barack Obama said, I've always been against the war? We've seen her husband say, this is a fairy tale. We know what sort of trouble happened as a result of that. But she seemed to just punt on each of those three occasions.
I think that she, for some reason, seemed intimidated to give that standard counterpunch that she's been giving. I mean, Barack Obama is not perfect on the war. He said tonight that he makes the case eloquently that, you know, it's important to have had the judgment to see it was wrong from the beginning. But then he says stuff like, it's important to me to complete the mission, and we need to show the Iraqis we're serious. You know, what part of the 3rd Infantry Division doesn't make us look serious? There's a lot of ways in which he's not showing that he gets the fundamental problem that Iraq is for America right now. He's not perfect on the war. She could hit him on that. I don't know why she isn't, especially when it's probably the worst thing about her record for the Democratic base.
Well, the reason she doesn't do that is you don't fight somebody on your weakest ground, in my judgment, and I think this is her weakest ground. I do think she could have at least made the case that her husband did make fairly, that after speaking against the war, he voted for it. But again, when you get more and more deeply into that, I mean, Hillary has an indefensible position for the audience she is courting. So the sooner she gets off that, the better.
She needs to say that vote in 2002 was wrong and stop saying. Listen, what she's saying though, Pat. Listen to the alternative. She's saying, I had no idea Bush would use that as an excuse to go to war. That makes her sound like an idiot.
Well, look, wait a minute. Look, why would you say, if you say that I vote was wrong, I made a mistake? What you're saying is the most important vote of my public life. I made a mistake. and it brought on the biggest strategic disaster in my lifetime. That was a major vote of her lifetime. I don't think Edwards has been helped by running around. I made a mistake and I apologize. I think she's on the right course and she takes her hits, but don't start apologizing and groveling because they'll start beating you up.
She's on the political road to hell here, and she's got two bad choices to choose between. But saying I couldn't have known that Bush would go to war is not the better of the two choices.
I've got 45 seconds, and Pat, I'm going to put you in your nightmare position and Hillary Clinton's nightmare position. You're her advisor on this. How does she answer that question if she doesn't say, I made a mistake?
She does exactly what she's doing. She says, here's why I voted the way I voted. We had the information we were given. We weren't given all the correct facts. I voted correctly, I believe, on the information I was given. And Bush did it, and he's responsible, and stay with it. But let me tell you, when you start going out there and say, I made a mistake on the biggest vote of my life, and you start apologizing for it, who wants to elect somebody that did that?
As I was once asked by Stephen Colbert, have you ever made a mistake on the air? And I said, yes. And he said, how do I know you're not making a mistake on the air right now? Air America's Rachel Maddow and MSNBC's Pat Buchanan, great thanks to you both. And we'll see you again on Super Tuesday.